Tell us about why we need sleep.
Our brain can get dirty, and that waste and trash can really damage how our brain functions. Sleep is a time we wash our brain, we make it clean.
We're really interested in preventing dementia. How can we promote that?
Only one of them is genetic. The other 14 are in our control.
Hello, I'm Dr. William E. Morgan, president of Parker University and Parker Seminars. Today I have a very special guest, Dr. Mark Milstein. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what got you involved in neuroscience? What attracted you to neuroscience?
Well, actually, I started in cancer biology at UCLA, and I was part of a group of researchers that discovered that something involved in breast cancer was also involved in memory. And at that time, that was really interesting that something in one part of the body was impacting the brain. And it was just about the time where our understanding of the brain was really exploding, and we were learning that how the brain works and how it works could directly relate to things we could do better. So it was just very exciting.
So can you share some insights on your research in the brain?
Yeah, so what I really focus on are what are the little things, what are the smallest things that we can do that are rooted in science to protect our brain now and years from now. So I talk a lot about sleep and gut-brain connection, stress management, and underlying conditions that we might not think are connected but are. So I really try to focus on what are actionable, simple things that we can do. And there's so much we can do to really protect our brain.
And sleep seems to me to be a low-hanging fruit, something easy to do.
Yeah.
Tell us about why we need sleep and how many hours sleep and what quality of sleep.
Yeah, so sleep is a time where we really clean our brain. That's just one way to think about it. And as we get older, our brain can get dirty. I know that sounds like an odd thing to think about, but it can fill up with waste, trash, and toxins. And that waste and trash can really damage how our brain functions. Sleep is a time we wash our brain, we make it clean. So it's not just the number of hours of sleep that we're getting, it's how good are those hours. So some things to be aware of are, we really want to think about the darkness of our room. A lot of people now sleep, with devices in the room and all these little bits of light. They seem so insignificant, but they can pass through our closed eyelids, that light, and they can not allow the brain to get into the deepest stage of sleep where we actually wash our brain. And we're seeing studies now that those lights in our room can throw off our blood pressure, our heart rate, our insulin response. So really just a small thing of just getting our room a little bit darker and getting back to some darkness in our room can optimize our sleep and thus our longevity.
We've recently invested in blackout blinds.
Yeah.
It made a world of difference.
Yeah.
And I've read the articles too, where even just the little light on your phone across the room will interfere with the ability to get high quality, slow wave sleep.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other tips for us? What about drinking alcohol at night?
So alcohol, we don't want to use it as a sleep aid because we understand now that it makes us drowsy, but it destroys something in the brain called glutamate, which it's a stimulant. When you destroy that stimulant, makes you feel drowsy, but about 4 hours later, your brain goes, where's all that stimulant? It starts to manufacture it. And for that reason, it wakes people up like 2, 3 in the morning. So for that reason, we really want to stay away from alcohol as a sleep aid. And we want to be careful about alcohol, especially anything past moderate in terms of brain health.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, what about people supplement with melatonin to go to sleep? Do you recommend that?
We want to be careful. So melatonin is important for brain health. In the supplement form, we have some concerns. The concern is that the regulation of melatonin is not what it needs to be. So knowing that you're getting good melatonin can be problematic. So we want to be really careful there. Melatonin can interfere with other medications someone is taking. And we are concerned that the long-term use of melatonin might interfere with the endogenous or the brain's ability to make its own melatonin. So for those reasons, we're actually saying first, let's talk about the darkness of our rooms. We know that morning light, soon after waking up actually helps your brain regulate the melatonin system through our brain clock, which we now understand a lot better and how that functions. So we realize that morning light, darkness in our room, temperature of our room, keeping our rooms cooler, really optimizing those factors are our first line of defense. If somebody's still struggling, supplements can be used. We just want to be careful with them because they can be problematic, and we just want to use them as responsibly as possible.
That's good advice about the coolness of the room.
Yeah.
65 degrees is what we set our room at.
Yeah.
And as I speak on brain health, a lot of people say, well, as you get older, it's hard to go to sleep because we naturally produce less melatonin.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody's in their 60s or 70s or 80s. How can we help them go to sleep, stay asleep? And of course, we talked a little bit about the glymphatic system.
Yeah.
So that, and we'll talk about that a little later, but how can we help them sleep better?
Well, realizing that as we get a little bit older, our eyes, the amount of light that they can take in during the day can diminish. And we need that natural light throughout the day to help regulate our circadian clock to help us feel sleepy at night. So realizing that we want to be getting out, we want to be getting outside as we get older. Sometimes we're spending a little bit more too much time indoors. So being outside is important. And then also realizing what we're doing in the hour before bed is critically important too. So if we're looking at the devices that can emit the blue light before bed that makes it hard to fall asleep, having a routine, taking a break from television if that's something that's stressing us out or worrying us, but having a pre-bed routine that's not too exciting, that's not a lot of light, that's relaxing, letting go of some stresses and worries. Things like mindfulness we know are highly effective in the hour before bed. So having a plan for some simple things that we can do can be really helpful past the age of 65 and for all ages too. We want to really realize that sleep isn't something that happens the moment you're about to fall asleep. It's a series of events that we're leading up to sleep too.
And the habits you form. So recommending people get up, go for a 15 to 20-minute walk in the daylight without sunglasses on in the morning.
Yeah, there is evidence that we do see very strongly that the first half hour after we wake up, getting outside starts that brain clock to start its countdown to when it's time to fall asleep. So if we don't get outside in the morning, we miss out on that countdown process, and that can make it much harder to fall asleep. So something easily we can overlook, but something easily we can do.
So we've also heard, and my wife and I originally got we're really into the sleep health because we realize how important it is. But a sauna, taking a sauna before you go to bed, how does or a shower, how can that affect you?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So saunas, we're seeing a lot of evidence can be helpful for heart health, cardiovascular, which in turn is good for brain health. When it comes to temperature, what we're seeing is that if someone's struggling with sleep, having the heating up or a sauna or a warm bath or shower, pushing it to about 90 minutes before bed, because we want that cool down process. We want, after we're heated up, our body cools down, and that actually helps induce and helps us fall asleep. Some people can, be heated up right before bed and they fall asleep fine, but if you're having trouble sleeping, we want that hour and a half or 90 minutes to have that cool down, because that can be very helpful to help people fall asleep.
How does exercise affect brain health?
It's one of the most important things that we can do, one of the best things we can do. And the good news is it doesn't have to be marathons and triathlons. We can get a lot of brain health benefits from 30 minutes of walking a day. We now see lowers the risk of dementia or significant memory loss by about 60%. We see that within that 30 minutes of walking a day, getting our heart rate up for about 6 to 10 minutes has a profound impact on memory boosting. We talk about taking the stairs over escalators and elevators. All those things, those little things that we can do throughout the day, we see protect our brain. Exercise is providing blood flow to the brain. It's helping us sleep. It helps balance our immune system. So it's just one of the most important things we want to do.
We did touch on the glymphatic system.
Yeah.
And it's relatively new. It was first, the term was first coined in, I think, 2012.
Yeah.
So it's so important that our bodies take out the trash, and they're able to do synaptic pruning and have autophagy take place. How can we promote that? And as we get older, and we're really interested in preventing dementia.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to really strongly help us to combat dementia?
Well, we have a lot of hope in this area. So that brainwash that you just talked about through the glymphatic system is one way. We know that optimizing our sleep. A study came out just a couple days ago that said, what are the 15 risk factors for memory loss? Of the 15 factors, only one of them is genetic. The other 14 are in our control. And even the genetics, only 95 to 99% of all cases of Alzheimer's disease are not strictly genetic. So the things that we do, our lifestyle factors, the sleep that we're talking about, what we're eating, exercising, underlying conditions, stress management, being social, things that are actually fun, which is good news. We need to get the word out that it's a lot of things that are fun and little things that we can add to our day, and that we can really bring risk down, even for people who have genetic risk. So there's a lot of hope here.
Can you share any fascinating discoveries or trends in neuroscience?
Yeah, I think we're in an exciting time. It's every day there's new studies that are coming out. Where to begin, I read a study yesterday that found that Tai Chi was really highly beneficial in lowering blood pressure.
Better than
aerobic exercise.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that. I read that study as well.
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
And what's fascinating about that is that we now know that high blood pressure and low blood pressure is one of our biggest risk factors for dementia and Alzheimer's. In fact, our blood pressure in our 30s will impact our brain health in our 70s. And blood pressure matters at all ages. So if we can find things like Tai Chi that are effective, that we see scientifically strong data, that these are things we can use and utilize, that's what we want to be turning to, is that what can we implement that's easy, that can protect things like our blood pressure and thus protect our brain.
Any nutraceuticals like magnesium that you'd recommend?
It's a little bit murky, the science there. We want to be careful. We need better studies there. We do see vitamin D is important. We see that on those 15 risk factors, low levels of vitamin D have a significantly increased risk of memory loss. We just want to make sure the levels aren't too high. So an important really take-home message is that, when somebody's taking a supplement, really be checking every few months, because vitamin D, if it's deficient, can cause memory loss. If it's too high, it can interfere with cognition or brain function. We're also seeing that a study came out a few months ago that just a simple multivitamin for those over the age of 65 had some memory boosting impacts, made the brain look a little bit more youthful. So we're keeping our eye on the supplement studies until we get some stronger data there. But those are two areas where we're seeing strong data, vitamin D and just an overall multivitamin that can be beneficial. And we're hopeful that there's some news on the horizon where we can get more specific.
Have you seen the study where they were predicting longevity based on marine omega-3 oils?
I've seen those types of studies. Yeah. So those are omega-3 is definitely critically important for our brain health. We know that getting them through diet, salmon, avocados, nuts, critically important. Supplements can be used, but we just want to be careful they're used for the right people and for the right reasons.
It sounds like you've really been very careful about having a careful approach for translating the complex scientific concepts to us lay people.
Yeah, I love the science. It's exciting, and I think really something I'm very passionate about is just talking about it in a way there's so much information now, but so much misinformation. So how do we get down to what's scientifically valid for what we can do? So we're not wasting time and money on things that are not rooted in science or we don't have enough evidence for yet.
And you have a book out.
I do, yeah.
Tell us about the book and what's the thrust of your book?
It's called The Age-Proof Brain. And it's about what we've been talking about, but a deeper dive into what are the simple, actionable things you can do to protect your brain, lower your risk for Alzheimer's and dementia, but also just make your brain work better today. And it's science talked about in a way that's just fun and easy to digest, uplifting, and just loaded with actionable take-home tips. Here's things you can do.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us today. You've been listening to Dr. Mark Milstein and Dr. William Morgan, and this is Parker Success Academy.